When Microsoft announced their newest Surface laptop line would feature an ARM-based chip from Snapdragon, complete with an improved version of Windows for ARM, I went 6 to midnight. This was for two reasons. First is that I've never seen a Windows laptop that has the right combination of size, performance, and battery life. Usually you can only pick two of those. Second is that after seeing how Apple's transition to ARM went, I was excited to see the same leap on a Windows machine. Well, as you can tell by the title, my excitement has turned mostly into disappointment. This Surface laptop is a beautiful machine with excellent battery life and a gorgeous display, but all of that falls apart when actually using it due to the software. Let's talk about it. This review will be broken down into two parts, as most laptop reviews are: hardware and software. Like I mentioned, this is a gorgeous machine. To be fair, the Surface line has always been pretty solid. I went with a 13-inch X Elite model with 512GB of storage and 16GB of RAM. Here it is compared to my wife's old Surface laptop, which I believe is a 2. Overall, I wouldn't say it's a huge design change, but the thinner bezels and more rounded design make it a much appreciated refresh. Here are the specs. Pause the video if you want to read through everything, but a quick run through is a 12-core Snapdragon X Elite ARM chip with an Adreno 741 integrated GPU and a Hexagon NPU with 45 TOPs, 512GB NVMe drive, 16GB LPDDR5X RAM, a 2304 by 1536 IPS display with 120Hz dynamic refresh rate, and weighs just under 3 pounds. It's hard to convey a feeling through a YouTube video, but this laptop just feels so good. It's light, yet feels solid. It's got a nice balance when using it on your lap. The 3:2 aspect ratio is great. The screen, while not OLED, is accurate with no weird off-axis funny business, and the keyboard is excellent. I went with the blue, and the metal housing in this color does an excellent job of hiding fingerprints. Honestly, I have no real complaints about the overall build, other than the ports. On the left side, you get a headphone jack, USB 3 Type A, and dual USB 4 ports. That's nice, especially the Type A. On the other side though, you get the magnetic surface connector. That's it. I hate this stupid connector. It's ugly, the magnet is too weak, and you have to wiggle it around till it slides in. Basically everything Apple's MagSafe isn't. It can technically transfer data, but the only option you have are Microsoft's expensive ass docks. Just open up the license and let third parties create things. I wouldn't mind this connector if they also had another USB 4 port on here, since that would let me charge the device from either side. Now, was this overly dramatic? Yes, but it's my video. So what about price? These laptops aren't cheap, and they never have been, but I wouldn't say they're expensive. Their cheapest model comes in at $999, with this model being $1,259. This is about on par with Apple's MacBook Air line. They can still get up there in price, with the highest end model being well over $2,000. At this price point, I do wish they had an OLED option, but whatever. I will say that you can get the Asus Snapdragon laptops with better storage and RAM options for a cheaper price. Using this machine for everyday tasks has been great with a dynamic refresh rate screen, the larger trackpad that is one of the best I've seen on a Windows machine, and the keyboard that has an impressive travel feel for such a thin laptop. A big reason I mentioned why I was so excited about this thing was that Windows machines generally have notoriously terrible battery life in these thin inlays, especially when you try to cram a powerful chip in there. This thing solves that, and it's great most of the time. When you're doing your standard battery life tests, it performs amazing and holds its own against Apple and crushes most other Windows devices. I've been able to echo this in real-world use when watching YouTube, browsing the web, and writing scripts. So what's the problem? Well, when doing other things like playing games and running non-native ARM software, battery life seems to drain fairly quickly. As an example, I'm writing this script while downloading some games in Steam and the Epic Store. I just started past 8 o'clock with 100% battery, and less than an hour later, I'm at 77%. I don't have an official test, but I do have a good feel for it over these last few weeks. It feels like no matter what I throw at my M1 MacBook Pro, it's fairly consistent with its battery life. The Surface feels really good for casual use, but I've had plenty of occasions where I've looked down and I'm under 50% and I'm thinking, wait, what? Oh yeah, I was running Hardware Info and Resolve, which is maybe ARM native? Hard to tell. I wish I had a less subjective approach to this, but I'm not LTT Labs or Tech Jesus, so you'll have to trust my vibes. And since we've basically tiptoed our way into software, let's just dive in. Let me start by saying that if you're looking for benchmarks and graphs, this ain't it. There's plenty of those out there. This is about the usability of the software. When Apple made the transition from using Intel chips in their MacBooks to their own in-house ARM chips, that was a big deal. That would require a complete overhaul not only to the operating system, but to all the software that runs in it. It makes sense that Apple-created softwares were ported over to ARM right out of the gate. The same is true for a lot of Microsoft software. The astronomical difference here is how each has handled software that hasn't been ported over to ARM yet. Both are using a translation layer, but Apple's Rosetta 2 is so much better than whatever Microsoft is doing here. I'm not just talking about, in this benchmark, macOS loses only 5% of performance while Windows is at 7%. No, I'm talking about how in macOS, you can't even tell what's native and what's emulated. In Windows, it's painfully obvious in a lot of cases. Like, look at Parsec here. This isn't even usable. I mean, look at it. Epic Game Store is better and probably usable, but it's obvious that something is wrong. Steam seems fine and is probably a good example of their translation layer performing well, and DaVinci Resolve performs well, but they have a dedicated Windows for ARM version, which as you can see is running as ARM64. I think. Why does it say x64 compatible next to it? I mean, even in Photoshop, which they officially announced as being natively supported on ARM, is buggy. I can't even pinch to zoom and it just ignores the natural scroll setting. And yes, I've tried to go in and change various settings. Doesn't do anything. Continuing on weird trackpad stuff, when you get a security prompt, the trackpad just stops working until you take your fingers off and try again. Hey, that's all fine as long as I can play the one game that I play, League of Legends. I can't? The anti-cheat doesn't work on Windows for ARM? Excellent. I also noted that there is very limited hardware encoding supported. In Handbrake, I only have an option for H.265, and in OBS, I have nothing. No AV1 yet is wild in an age where every new device coming out is pushing AV1. I'm pretty sure Qualcomm made it a point to emphasize hardware decoders in there, but they can't actually use them, then who cares? It's just not a good experience at all across the board unless you're browsing the web, and at that point, just save a shit ton of money and get a Chromebook. Now look, obviously this is trash and should not have been released to production in this state. I also get that migrating the world's most popular desktop operating system to a new architecture is going to have some growing pains. I would be more sympathetic towards this situation though if Apple had not done the same thing a few years ago and absolutely crushed it. So no, Microsoft, you don't get a pass here.
But Brett, you can't expect software devs to port their software before the product is even released.
I agree. I don't expect 100% of software to be ARM native on day one, but I do expect their x64 translation layer to not suck ass. Go poach some Apple engineers, because whatever they did over there was a hell of a lot better than this crap. Remember, we aren't talking about a startup here. This is one of the largest companies in the world. Now, there could very well be a reason for all this that's way more technical and over my head, but at the end of the day, I'm an end user and these are my experiences. Wait, Brett, you made it all the way through the software section and didn't even mention AI. Yeah, I'm going to be real with you guys. I don't give two shits about the NPU in here and the AI Copilot stuff. I'm not just saying that to sound edgy or cool or anything. I legitimately don't care. Until they show me an actual real-world use case for running AI models on the device, then I'll be ignoring all the AI features. Like, let's look at Microsoft's examples for their unique AI features for Copilot plus PCs. Yeah, that's the most mid-ass list I've ever seen, and one of those got booed back into pre-release. Okay, you know what? How about we just ask the AI on here what it's useful for? Cool, thanks. And this wasn't planned, but a few hours after writing this script, I got a convenient email. Big Brother must be a Raid Owl fan. The silver lining here is that while the software is butt cheeks today, it has the potential to improve over time. Will it though? I mean, if I'm betting money, then I'd say yes. Will it reach Apple levels? That I'm less sure of. If I wasn't a content creator, I would 100% return this thing and I'd be very pissed. So as of today, do not buy this. Yes, the tech is cool and the hardware is solid, but that becomes very superficial when a bunch of your software runs like Dookie. I know there are lots of reviews out there with tons of graphs and charts showing that this thing performs well. I'm not saying those are wrong, I'm just here to show you what actually using this thing is like. It's clear that this machine certainly has a high ceiling, but right now it's just not there. I'm just really disappointed because I've been saying for a long time that Apple makes the best laptops, and I was hoping this would be the Windows machine that could put up a fight. Hell, in my list of videos to make, this was supposed to be a home lab showdown between this Surface and my MacBook. And after using it, that really wouldn't be a fair match. In the next few weeks and months, I'll be continuing to use this and document my experience through shitposts on Twitter and YouTube, so why don't you guys come along for a ride? If you like this video, then drop a like. If you like content like this, then subscribe. I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members and my Patreons. You guys are my Windows Snapdragon laptop from the future that absolutely crushes the M line from Apple. Y'all are delicious. And if you're still watching, you're the Surface Connector. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.